his game, and he's the one playing you.
Hi guys, and welcome back to SwitchUp. Today we're going to look at the game Hard West. Thank you to the developers for the review copy. Whether it be Bridges in True Grit or Eastwood in The Good, the Bad and the Ugly, there's something about the Western that can captivate an audience. Hard West takes this magic and tries to apply it to one of my favourite styles of game. Much like my beloved XCOM, which is obviously the go-to comparison for any reviewer of these types of games, it utilises many of the same systems. Unfortunately, it's a tough act to follow, and I'm not even talking about the latter games. I'm referring to UFO Enemy Unknown on the Amiga, which was so far beyond its time. Does Hard West deliver, or is this a fistful of failures? Ouch. Let's find out. The real beauty of Hard West is how it integrates story into its various campaigns. The gravelly tones of the narrator do an excellent job of bringing to life this barren, dangerous world.
The dying man rambled on about some unholy obligation, about promises made by the devil himself, and the rewards they would find in hell.
The first campaign you're likely to undertake sees you take the role of a son trying to live up to the expectations of his father, who initially seems invincible, but now is frail, full of fears, and has lost his way. Together you try to rebuild what remains of a lost gold mining venture. Story is delivered through both the voice-active narrator and also some lovely text-based dialogue, which serves to bring life to an otherwise potentially blander experience. What really stood out to me was how often the story changes. 1 minute things would be going seemingly well, only for a huge shift to result in the death of a beloved character. Now I for one enjoyed this, and the fact the game constantly plays with your affections for these characters meant that my investment felt like it was being rewarded.
From the day you first laid eyes on Florence, she was all you could think about.
Without spoiling too much, each of the different campaigns follows either a new chapter in their story or an entirely new one. The DLC pack, which comes as standard with the game, is excellent, and I'd highly recommend and suggest that perhaps it's a better story than the original game, with the main character beginning her journey by breaking loose from a slave camp.
Many would have seen it as a victory and waited for the fall of the Confederacy, but you took matters into your own hand. I saw what you did. You were magnificent.
I found the narration during the action sequences to be a welcome addition. As is so often the case in these games, the story and the gameplay feel separate. Here, however, I found that the voice work gave a sense of coherence to the whole experience and felt cinematic.
Making the house you were defending no longer yours. Every man you killed raised the reward on your head a little higher.
Although it's not perfect in regards to its story, as I found some of the campaigns to be quite short with abrupt endings, I would have liked more choice, or at least more impact from the choices I made throughout the experience. With those small things aside, however, the atmosphere created by the delivery goes a great deal towards making it such an enjoyable game. Story scores 18 out of 20. Now, having mentioned that the game reminds me of XCOM, I think it's important to point out that it goes beyond the obvious. What I really enjoyed about the original XCOM games were how they were played out over multiple levels or stories, and you could change the camera to either the ground, mid or higher tier points to enable you to scout potentially excellent vantages. Well, Hard West goes one better than this. Not only does it have this feature, but it also allows you to manipulate your environment to create your own cover. As you'd expect, this comes in a few different levels, with a shield representing half and full for the amount of cover provided. Well, it doesn't exactly mean that you're completely vulnerable if you're behind a full shield, but as you'd expect, it increases your percentage chance of not getting hit. When it's your turn, you can move your character within this field, and its smart utilization is essential. Thankfully, the game will take into account your current position in relation to the enemy, rewarding a good flank by increasing the percentage chance to hit.
Silenced. The truth of your situation finally hit home.
Also, there's the fact that you can see enemies hidden just by the shadows they're casting, and despite the obvious comparisons I previously mentioned, hardware stands well and truly on its own 2 feet when it comes to gameplay. The aim of each round is to eliminate your enemy. Sometimes you're given specific survival requirements on certain characters, which obviously makes sense, but it was also nice that you are penalised for the loss of a hired hand or someone less important but still a part of your group. This meant that any death, regardless of their status to the story, was felt, even if it was just in your wallet. You can change the weapon you currently have selected easily, and depending on its range will be granted a different hit percentage. Your character has a set of unique skills, such as firing multiple shots at a lower percentage chance to hit. Before entering a round, you reach the loadout screen. From here you can add different equipment to your character, as well as certain trinkets and items you've collected in the story or perhaps purchased that might increase your luck, movement range, or even the weapon accuracy. Throughout the game you'll be collecting a series of cards, which can also be applied here to give you unique perks, and the hand that you choose really will make a difference to the abilities of your characters. The environments when in combat are well designed, with many different routes to take when uncovering the locations of enemies hidden from your sight. When you've used up all of your action points, it is time for the enemy to make their move. This is done in typical style, with most of these being hidden from your sight, but with the occasional one becoming visible. It's worth noting that if you approach an enemy too closely when it's your turn, then they'll automatically fire upon you. Some of my favourite scenarios were those that involve some form of stealth. You may find yourself rescuing someone from jail, and with the ability to make people stick 'em up with a set of pistols, this will render them unable to move or sound the alarm for a set number of turns, and this ability also stacks up to a maximum of 7. The controls are good enough, with the left stick controlling the movement of the cursor in the same way a mouse would, and the right controlling the overall camera. It's never going to be as good as a mouse and keyboard, but it works well enough. When you are in the overworld map, you can move the character to different locations and interact with settlements to uncover further story sections or potential mining opportunities. The right stick here is quite irritating, if I'm honest, as you move the camera with the right, and then when you actually want to move the left analog to choose something, it pings you back to its location rather than bring it to where you are. Now, unless I'm missing something, it makes moving the camera this way redundant. Also, in combat, the camera that rotates between 4 fixed angles can get a little bit irritating, and it can be a bit oversensitive. Minor quibbles, but still worth noting. The starter campaign has you gradually increase your wealth, learning how to mine and increasing your skills to forage for gold. The standout moments for me are the unusual little side story sections, like for example when I came across 2 twins, one of them alive and the other one dead, with the living one holding the pistol, and it was up to me to decide whether I let him go and kept the pistol, or dragged that cretin straight to jail. I'll let you decide what I did. The pistol was lovely, by the way. Overall, the world map never felt fully realised, but I still enjoyed travelling around and learning about this place. I also liked how time passed in the game, and actions seemed to carry real weight to them, even if the outcome was predetermined. The inclusion of the DLC is what really elevates this package, as there's some very nice variety to some of the missions found there. Overall for me, gameplay is extremely rewarding, with a good deal of challenge. It scores 17 out of 20.
Gunther, I hope this gives you the peace you deserve.
I'd say the game was visually visceral, which I'm not even sure how to describe. It's chunky and solid when in combat, and the audio is on point. The main thing here is that it performs well in both docked and handheld modes, and the aesthetic choices are sensible. The inclusion of real-time dynamic shadow mapping means that you can still spot enemies this way, despite some textures being a little low. In handheld, it looks nice and performs okay for the most part. Everything just feels authentic and fits with the theme. The hand-drawn sections, including the cards and HUD, mirror these choices and work well to tie everything together. There are some more supernatural aspects to the game, and these also are well depicted.
Trapped betwixt life and death, you now belonged to neither realm. The coffin nails didn't hold fast. You were supposed to be dead, so no one took notice right away.
It's nice to see a good splash of crimson on the Nintendo Switch console. Audio's good, from the voice acting to the music, sound effects are decent with the weapons carrying weight. Some of the dialogue may be a little too frequent for some, but I enjoyed it overlaying the on-screen proceedings. For me, visuals score 17 out of 20, and that lovely audio also scores 17 out of 20. The game costs £16.19, $17.99 and €17.99, and I'd say that's a reasonable price when you consider the replayability of this style of game. Throw in the quality and quantity of the included Scars of Freedom expansion and you're getting a great value and very premium feeling experience for the most part. Despite no multiplayer, you're looking at a solid 25 plus hours of gaming at least. That will scratch the XCOM itch for sure. Value scores 16 out of 20. I really liked Hard West. We play so many games that aren't necessarily our usual cup of tea, that when one turns up that is your taste, and also a ton of fun, it's a refreshing change. Now, it's not perfect, but it really does scratch that XCOM itch until the inevitable release on Nintendo Switch. Please, it's gotta come. It scores a SwitchUp score of 85%. Thanks so much as always to the developers, to all of our Patreons that support us every single month. If you're interested in that, all the links are down below. And for all things Switch all the time, keep it Switch up. Cheers guys, see ya!